Yes, Doc.
Sige. Time pa. Okay, so good morning. So for this morning, we're going to be talking about tuberculosis, pneumonia, and then a little about COVID. I won't be talking about IMCI na ha, kaya it's very simple, manggod. In pneumonia, I would be talking about PAPP, that's Philippine Academy of Pediatric Pulmonology na guidelines for how to diagnose pneumonia. So that is what we are using in the hospital, no, to how to diagnose asthma. Okay, so let's start with TB. This is also WHO. Okay, so for tuberculosis, okay, so the development of TB depends on the competence of the immune system to resist multiplication of your tuberculous infection. So basically, when you are exposed to a person, no, with tuberculosis, pwede gyud ka dili ma-TB. Okay, because you have your immune system. Okay, so this competence varies with age, being least in the very young, HIV infection, malnutrition, because it lowers your body's defenses. Measles and whooping cough also impairs the strength of your immune system. So that's why it is important that you have to take care of the immune system. Okay, cough for more than 14 days can be a presenting sign. Okay, so if you would have a cough more than 14 days, so pwede na na siya tawag na to, we can call that chronic cough. Okay, so when you say chronic cough, mean to say that's the TB is part of your differential diagnosis. So you can say pertussis, no, tuberculosis, asthma, allergic rhinitis. Okay, the risk for TB increases when there is an active case. Mean to say infectious smear positive pulmonary TB in the same house, or when the child is malnourished, has HIV, AIDS, and has measles in the past months. Okay, so close contact youth, especially if they are bacteriologically confirmed. Okay, consider TB in any child with a history of unexplained weight loss or failure to grow normally. So, di ba, I think in clinics, no, we have the anthropometric measurement. Okay, so that's why you have to plot it, no, because you want to know if the child is growing normally. So let's just say the parent comes to you, no, then they will tell you na, Doc, kusog man ni siya mukaon, no, the child is eating well, but is not growing. So that would be a presumptive TB already, even though the patient is not coughing. No, consider TB in any child with the following, no? Unexplained weight loss or failure to grow, unexplained fever, especially when it is continuous for more than 2 weeks, chronic cough, more than 14 days with or without wheeze, and exposure to an adult with a probable or definite infectious pulmonary TB. Okay, so those are your considerations. Okay. So for examination, so sometimes you would have what you call that fluid, you have pleural effusion, okay, on either side, okay, so you would have decreased air entry and dullness on percussion. Some would have lymphadenopathy, okay, or lymph node abscess, especially in the neck. Signs of meningitis, especially when they develop over several days, or spinal fluid that contains mostly lymphocytes and elevated protein. Okay, abdominal swelling with or without palpable lumps, progressive swelling or deformity of the bones, joints, including the spine. So this is what you call your disseminated TB already. So pulmonary tuberculosis, the tuberculous infection is confined only in the lungs. But if you would have extra pulmonary, so it can happen in the same patient, no, in the lungs. You have TB meningitis also, and then you also have what you call that, kanang your lymph nodes are also affected. Okay, so disseminated na siya because you have at least two organ system that is affected. Okay, pwede po mo, you would have like involvement of the joints or spine, you would have Pott's disease, but you don't have pulmonary infection anymore. Okay, so it doesn't mean to say that if you have TB meningitis, you have an active TB infection, okay, in the pulmonary. But most likely the entry point of that is really the pulmonary, okay? But it travels, so you will have hematogenous, no, route So, ni-travel na yung tuberculosis. So, pwede na-contain diri sa kuan in your lungs, but it traveled into the other organ systems. Okay, so that's your disseminated TB. Or you would have, if let's just say, scrofula lang, no, lymph node involvement, extrapulmonary tuberculosis na siya. Okay, so how do you work up your patient with TB? So AFB smear for 3 consecutive mornings, or if your patient cannot expectorate, get a gastric aspirate. Okay, so you can also get CSF fluid, CSF, pleural fluid, acetic fluid. Okay, detection rates with these methods are low. A positive result confirms TB, but a negative result does not exclude the disease. Okay, so these are the tests that it will help you if it's positive. But if it's negative, it doesn't mean to say that your patient, no, that your patient doesn't have the disease. Okay, you still have to go clinical. So in X-ray, there's really no specific findings in X-ray, non-specific na siya tanan, except if you would have cavitary tuberculosis, especially in adults. But in pedia, they are non-specific. So you can have either a miliary pattern that infiltrates or persistent infiltrate in a specific site. Sometimes we have consolidation, referral effusion, or your primary complex, or you would have lymphadenopathy on your lungs. Okay, so that is like the hint na most probably your patient would have tuberculosis. Okay, so you can also perform your PPD or your Mantoux test. The test is usually positive with a child with pulmonary TB. So the reaction, no, that would tell you that it's positive. So it is more than 10 millimeters. Okay, so this is suggestive of tuberculosis. Less than 10 millimeter in a child previously vaccinated with BCG is equivocal. Okay, a purified protein derivative test may be negative in children with TB who has HIV, miliary disease, severe malnutrition, and recent measles. Or for that matter, no, kanang patient that are very kanang na malnutrition, no, or inadequately performed, or it was not performed properly. So there are several factors that would kanang negate your test. Okay, so immunodeficiency, or if your patient has been taking steroids. Okay, so if your has been taking steroids, so you don't perform your PPD because it's going to be negative. Okay. Okay, so your expert or your RIF should be used as the initial diagnostic test in children suspected with multi-drug resistant TB or HIV-associated TB. Routine HIV testing should be offered to all children suspected of tuberculosis. Okay. So the expert or your gene expert would be the diagnostic test of choice. Okay, so diba, you will get your AFB smear. Okay, so this one. Okay, AFB smear for 3 consecutive mornings. Okay, or your AFB sputum or your gastric aspirate. This same specimen you can send to get your gene expert. So in the TB dots or in the barangay health center, okay, what they usually do is they are the centers that we send our gene expert because it would be free of charge. Okay, so no charge, because if you are going to perform your gene expert in a private hospital, it would cost you a lot. Okay, but there are plenty of sites for what you call that smear testing and gene expert. So for treatment, okay, so first, what you call that, to follow all your medications are hepatotoxic. Okay, so that's why you have to follow the recommended dose. Okay, so it would be four drugs that you would use if you are going to give anti-TB medications in TB disease. Okay, so INH, that would be an H. Muna H stands for isoniazid. Rifampicin, that's R. Pyrazinamide and ethambutol. Okay, so the recommended dosage would be 10 milligrams for your isoniazid, 15 for rifampicin, pyrazinamide 35, ethambutol of 20 milligrams. But there's a range there. But we want to use the lowest possible dose or the mid-range, because of the risk of hepatotoxicity. Okay, the risk of hepatotoxicity. So that's why we want to use the we want to use the lowest possible dose for these medications. Okay, take note, so that's 10 milligrams per kilo per dose. Okay, but the maximum dose that you can give is only 300 milligrams per day, especially in obese patients. Okay, so take note of the maximum dose. That's 300 milligrams for isoniazid, 600 for your rifampicin. Okay, so that would roughly be your an adult dose. So it comes in syrup form, your isoniazid, rifampicin, and pyrazinamide. Your ethambutol comes in a tablet form. Okay, so how do we give this? So 4-drug regimen for 2 months, that would be your intensive phase. Okay, followed by 2-drug regimen for 4 months. So it's a total of 6 months treatment. So the intensive phase is HRZE for 2 months, followed by HR for 4 months. Okay, for all children, suspected or confirmed pulmonary TB or peripheral lymphadenitis living in an area with high HIV prevalence or where resistance of your isoniazid is high, or children with extensive pulmonary disease living in areas of low HIV prevalence or low isoniazid resistance. So basically, the Philippines is high HIV prevalence. Okay, so we really give the 6 months treatment. The intensive, the HRZE, followed by the maintenance phase, the HR for 4 months. Okay, there's also the 3-drug regimen. So HRZ for 2 months, followed by your HR for 4 months. For children suspected or confirmed TB or tuberculous peripheral lymphadenitis living in an areas of low HIV prevalence or low isoniazid resistance or HIV negative. Okay, so but most of the time we are following the 4-drug regimen because of the high prevalence of HIV in our country. Okay, before when I was a resident, we do follow the 3-drug regimen. Then eventually it progresses to the 4-drug regimen, just like in adult patients. Okay. So in cases of suspected or confirmed TB meningitis, spinal TB with neurologic signs or osteoarticular TB, so the duration of treatment would increase into 12 months. Okay, so with a 4-drug regimen of HRZE for 2 months, followed by your HR for 10 months. Okay, so special or so there will be increase in duration if you would have bone involvement already or your TB meningitis. Okay, so infants suspected with or confirmed TB or tuberculous peripheral lymphadenitis, treat promptly with standard regimen described above, with adjustment of your dose to reconcile the age and possible toxicity in young infants. So even though, let's just say you have a newborn, okay? So sometimes you would have an active infection for the mother, so it can be passed on to your infant. So immediately you start your treatment. Okay, so to prevent your congenital tuberculosis. Okay, so that's why we are advocating now for the diagnostic of choice, we do the gene expert, because the gene expert will tell you that MTB is detected, and then it would also tell you if it is rifampicin resistant or rifampicin resistance na iyang ma-detect. So at least you would have detection if you would have a drug resistant. Okay, so because there are plenty also of MDR TB, so that's multi-drug resistant. Okay, so in case of MDR, treat children with proven or suspected pulmonary TB or TB meningitis with fluoroquinolone or other second-line TB drug. So actually, there are really physicians that are trained to treat the MDR. So actually, I am not, if I have MDR patients, I refer them to a center like Vicente Soto and Eversley, because they would be using multiple drugs, the second-line drugs. You won't be using the primary drug for tuberculosis, and I am not trained for that. Okay, So appropriate MDR-TB treatment regimen in the context of a well-functioning MDR-TB control program should be used. Actually, we have a good MDR-TB program here, and all the medications are free, okay? So the decision to treat should be taken by the clinician's experience in managing pediatric TB. So, diba, you have your diagnostic test, but if your test would turn out to be negative, and then you have a high index of suspicion, no? So basically, your patient would have recurrent cough. Almost every month, the child is coughing, okay? So when you get an x-ray, so there would be persistent infiltrate. So either be it in the right lower, right middle, but most of the time, you will find it in the right middle lobe, okay? Failure to thrive. If you have that kind of patient, more or less, you would have presumptive tuberculosis. So you can go ahead and treat, okay? So mo gyapon niya siya kanang clinical decision making. So that's what you call your clinically diagnosed tuberculosis, okay? Because if your patient would turn out to be positive in the gene expert, so that's your or your AFB smear would be positive, okay? So that's what we call bacteriologically confirmed tuberculosis. But if you just have like the signs and symptoms, no chest X-ray findings, so that's what you call your clinically diagnosed tuberculosis. Okay. So public health measures, notify the case to the responsible district health authorities. So why do we have to notify them? Because we want to do contact tracing. Because supposed to be the goal here is to have a tuberculosis-free Philippines by 2030. Unfortunately, we cannot reach that goal because currently we still have a lot of tuberculosis active TB in the country because there's still stigma, no? So when you tell them na kay TB, they will be very afraid, no? They would be, the stigma, nobody, their neighbors wouldn't like go to them, no, mahadlok na, no, fear to be exposed to them, basin matakdan, no, there's still stigma. But you have to educate them that this disease is treatable, okay? After 2 weeks of taking the treatment, you won't be contagious anymore, okay? Also, take note, in children less than 10, okay, the TB disease in those patients, they are paucibacillary. Mean to say, there's just a small amount of TB bacilli present in the body. Okay, and then their coughing is not sufficient enough, no, it's not forceful enough to get the TB bacilli in the depths of your lungs to spread. Okay, so supposed to be there's no child-to-child transmission, except for if the child is more than 10. Okay, so it's not heard of. It's always an adult passing it to the child. Okay, so that's why you want not to do the contact tracing. But it's because it's so useless. If you treat the child and then the index case is still inside the house, matakod gihapon og balik. So you won't stop the cycle of infectiousness. Okay, so that's why you have to do contact tracing, just like before, like in COVID, we do contact tracing, so to prevent the spread of infection. Okay, so check all household members of the child and if necessary, school contacts for undetected TB case and arrange for treatment if any are found. Okay. Okay. So for children less than 5 who are household members or close contact of people or person with TB and who are after an appropriate clinical evaluation are found not to have active TB, they should be given 6 months of isoniazid preventive therapy. So less than 5, diba? Very young. They are vulnerable group. So if you would have a patient, no, a less than 5-year-old patient that is exposed, let's just say the dad, no, on history has chronic cough and bacteriologically confirmed TB. So automatic na siya ang bata, no, that you would have to give your tuberculosis preventive therapy. But you would have to do your testing first if the child doesn't have the active disease. So supposed to be an algorithm, you would have to get an x-ray, you would have to get the gene expert, no, and an AFB smear to check and then check for the signs and symptoms. So the child is well, no recurrent coughing. Okay, on x-ray, it's clear. Okay, when you do your gastric aspirate, okay, it's also negative. So you have to do your tuberculosis preventive therapy. So I've been asked about this a couple of times. Doc, my baby isn't symptomatic. All your lab results are negative. So why do you have to give you the medication? So this is prevention, no? That's TPT, tuberculosis preventive therapy. What you call that? Na-expose naman na siya. So more or less, there's a TB bacilli lurking around, no? Inside the lungs, maybe contained because of the good immune system. So you don't want your patient developing TB disease. So that's why you have to give your TPT. Majority this method of treatment is kanang neglected, no? Because most of the adults that are diagnosed in the health center, they do not do contact tracing, or they do not ask if there is an exposed child that is less than 5. Okay, so muna siya nga dili ma-work up ang patient, eventually you would have a child that would have an active disease already after a few months. Okay, so that's why you want to stop the spread, or you want to have an active TB, you do your TPT. Only use one drug of isoniazid for 6 months. Okay. Okay. Active follow-up, check if medications are taken regularly. Actually, we have the direct observational treatment, or the DOTS. Okay. So that's why they give the medication. But sometimes, or most of the time, the DOTS would just give you the medication. Supposed to be, they would go into the health center, no, and then the personnel there, the barangay health worker, would watch you take the medication. Pero murag, I think they think that it will take a lot of their time, so that's why they just supply you with the medication. Okay, so muna siya nga murag na defeat ang purpose. No, sometimes you forgot to take your medication. Sometimes I'm not coughing anymore, so naayon ako, so I won't be taking the medication. Okay, because it's so hard to be compliant if you are going to be taking the medication for 6 months. Okay, so that's why it's very important to do the direct observational treatment. Okay, and then your patient education would come in. No, educate the family, the importance to take the medication regularly, even if well. Okay, so your MDR, no, your multi-drug resistant, sprouts out because of the patients that are not taking their medications regularly. So what we usually tell them, no, na imurang gigitik ang kagaw, no, and then they would come out much more stronger. Okay, so that's why take the medication regularly. Do contact tracing, healthier home environment. Ventilation in the home is very, very important. No, the ins and out of your air. Okay, direct exposure to sunlight. No, so it's very important. Importance of nutrition during recovery. Check child's growth, nutritional status, and update of vaccination. So these things should be done to your patient. Okay, so any questions with tuberculosis? So the source here is WHO, not the NTP. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about this is what we use, no, the clinical practice guidelines in evaluation and management of pediatric community-acquired pneumonia, so the PCAP. So this is by the PIDSP and the PAPP. So there are clinical questions, okay? So we're going to answer them, and then this is how we manage the patient. It will tell you how to manage the patient in OPD and the inpatient, and then what are the antibiotics that we are going to be using. Okay. So clinical question number 1, among infants aged 3 months to 18 years, what clinical signs and symptoms would accurately diagnose community-acquired pneumonia? So take note, 3 months to 18 years. So if you have a child, or if you have an infant, 2 months of age, you cannot diagnose them as PCAP. Okay, so this guidelines is made for 3 months to 18 years of age. Okay, considered, no, PCAP in a patient who presents with cough or fever, plus the following predictor positive, plus any of the following positive predictors of radiographically confirmed pneumonia. Okay, so fever or cough, plus either tachypnea, retractions, nasal flaring, desaturation of less than 95, and then presence of grunting. bisag wala kay X-ray, okay? But most of the time, let me say, you have grunting or you have tachypnea, balsin, o bati din actual X-ray. So even though you don't have an X-ray, when you have a child that has cough or fever with, okay, positive predictors, no, positive. If you have tachypnea, most likely you would have pickup already, okay? So among infants, what are the clinical and ancillary parameters that will then determine the need for admission? Okay, so your pneumonia is classified into two. Before it was four. Okay, so pick up A, B, okay, and then C and D. Now we just lump it up to low risk or high risk. Okay, your low risk would be previously as pick up A, B, and then your high risk would be C or D. Okay, so there are clinical parameters that you would check. Okay, so first is your respiratory sign. Cyanosis, hypoxemia, head bobbing, chest indrawing, apnea, and grunting. So you would have to look of all these 5 respiratory signs for you to be able to say that if your patient would have low risk or high risk. So if one of these, any of these is present, so automatic na siya nga severe na siya. Okay? So if none, automatic na siya nga sa respiratory signs, non-severe or low risk. Okay, so respiratory signs. Next, what would be the other parameters? Okay, CNS, circulatory and general considerations. So there are 4 parameters that you'll be checking. Okay, next would be your CNS signs. So altered sensorium and convulsions. Okay, if there are no problem with sensorium, so it's low risk. If there's one that is present, so let's just say you would have lethargic patient, okay, automatic, it's high risk. How about the circulatory? So check for perfusion and pallor. If there's none, that's low risk. And if there's presence of poor perfusion or shock, so automatic na siya high risk. And other general consideration. So if your patient is malnourished, no, refuse to feed, dehydrated, and age less than 6 months, so automatic na siya na kuan ka ng high risk. So let's just say you have a 4-month-old that came in for let's just call fever and let's just say kanang cough. Okay, and then 6 months. So or fever with tachypnea, and then less than 6 months of age. So automatic na siya nga ma-admit kinaimong patient. Or age lang yun niya. So fever lang and then age of less than 6 months, most likely that patient would have a high risk for pneumonia. So you would have to admit that patient and then work up that patient. Okay. So clinical question number 3. So among infants 3 to 18, what are the diagnostic aids that will confirm the presence of non-severe pneumonia in ambulatory setting? Okay. So routine diagnostic aids are not considered for non-severe pickup in ambulatory setting. So in the OPD, you don't need to get a chest X-ray to really tell you that it's pneumonia. Okay, so when you do your physical examination, you would hear crackles. So suffice it is, you can manage those patients as an OPD setting without the X-ray. Okay, so kung hospital setting, so X-ray is recommended, no, as an initial diagnostic aid for patients classified as having severe pickup. Okay, POCUS, no, so your chest ultrasound, okay, by a skilled expert is strongly recommended as diagnostic aid for patient classified having severe pickup. Okay, procalcitonin is also used in conjunction with other factors such as your clinical presentation, imaging modalities, or other laboratory aids in diagnosing bacterial pickup. Okay, sputum gram stain and culture are not considered to be done routinely. Okay, and then CBC, ABG, serum electrolytes, and other diagnostic aids are considered to be used as a necessary based on the clinician's evaluation. So basically, no, you don't have to get everything. Mind you, your procalcitonin is very expensive. I think it will cost you mga 4,000 pesos. If you are in doubt if this is a bacterial infection or a viral pneumonia, so actually you can get your procalcitonin, okay? But it's not necessary to do everything, okay? Suffice it is, let's just say you do your x-ray. But sometimes, no, in toxic patients or in severe cases like a pickup D, we do focus, no, bedside na ultrasound to guide us, no, if this is really like, aside from the infiltrates, what else can be seen in the lungs. Okay? So, what's the need? What clinical and other ancillary parameters will determine the need for antibiotic treatment? Okay, so empiric antibiotic therapy is considered to be started in patients with clinical signs and symptoms of pickup with any of the following parameters suggestive of bacterial etiology for both non-severe and severe pneumonia. So basically, if you got a CBC, you have leukocytosis, no, an elevated CRP, an elevated procalcitonin, and then on an X-ray, you would have alveolar infiltrates, consolidation, air bronchogram, pleural effusion. So it is empiric. You give your empiric antibiotic therapy. Okay. So for patients having non-severe pickup, regardless of immunization status against strep, pneumonia, and Hib, any of the following is considered. Amoxicillin. So take note, this one is non-severe. Okay, amoxicillin at 40 to 50 milligrams per kilo every 8 hours for 7 days, or you can use the high dose at 80 to 90 milligrams every 12 hours for 5 to 7 days. Okay, or you can start your amoxicillin clavulanic acid at 80 to 90, okay, for 5 to 7 days, or cefuroxime at 20 to 30 milligrams per kilo per day, no? So basically, the accepted antibiotic would be amoxicillin, amoxicillin clavulanic, or your cefuroxime, okay? So that would be on an outpatient basis, regardless of the immunization status of your strep and your Hib. Okay. But, okay, so this one, the patients classified as having severe pickup, regardless of immunization status, you can give your PENG. Okay? Or, dara, sa mali ako ang pointer eh. Okay. Okay. So the patient classified as having severe pickup, regardless of the immunization status of strep, pneumonia, any of the following is considered. So first, it is an outpatient basis. This one is inpatient. Okay. So basically, you disregard the immunization status of the strep, but you have to consider the Hib status of the patient, if the patient is admitted. So if you use PENG, if you would have complete Hib immunization, so 3 pentavalent na vaccination, so you can use your PENG at 200,000 units per kilo per day. But if you have an incomplete Hib, so let's just say your patient just received 2 Hib or 2 penta vaccination, so you use your ampicillin, okay, at 200 milligrams per kilo every 6 hours. Okay, you can also start cefuroxime at 100 to 150 or ceftriaxone at 75 to 100 per day, or you can use your ampicillin sulbactam at 200 milligrams per kilo per day in settings with documented high penicillin-resistant pneumococci or beta-lactamase producing H. influenzae based on the local resistance data or hospital antibiogram. Actually, each hospital has its own antibiogram. Okay. In my experience, only Vicente Soto now uses the penicillin G. Most of the hospitals in private practice, they don't use, or we don't use penicillin G or ampicillin anymore. Okay, because of the high resistance. That's why we start most of the time. You will see when you will be going to be clerks, you will be seeing that most of the time cefuroxime would be the go-to antibiotic. Okay, so add clindamycin at 20 to 40 milligrams per kilo per day when you are thinking that there would be staphylococcal pneumonia. Okay, so based on clinical and chest radiograph. Okay, however, in cases of severe and life-threatening conditions such as sepsis and shock, so vancomycin is preferred. So how would you know that this is a staph pneumonia? Okay, so maybe you would have like a presence of skin lesions, no? So on a radiograph, you would have nematocele, okay? So you're thinking that maybe this is a staph. So on top of your cefuroxime or ceftriaxone, you can add your clindamycin or your vancomycin. Okay. Next. So what empiric treatment is effective if bacterial etiology is considered? Okay, so if you have a patient that is hypersensitive to penicillin, just like before, go with your type 1, non-type 1 hypersensitivity, go with your cephalosporin. Okay, if you have a type 1 hypersensitivity to penicillin, go with your macrolide. Okay, just like any other recommendations before on the treatment. Okay, so kung non-type 1, cephalosporin. Kung type 1 hypersensitivity to penicillin, go with the macrolide. Okay. When a typical pathogen is suspected, so how do you suspect that this is a typical organism? So what would be like the presentation of your patient? So maybe you are giving your classic antibiotic, just like, let's just say, you started your patient with penicillin G. Okay. After like 3 days, the patient is still not improving. Okay. So, not improving, pwede ka mo step up, or you can add maybe, so sakto man ako antibiotic, pneumonia man siya. So, and then maybe your patient is also wheezing. So, that's the time you give your macrolide. Okay. Most of the time, okay, you would be seeing physicians using macrolide right away instead of using the classic na antibiotic like your cephalosporins, your penicillin, some of them would opt to give the macrolide, especially is like the patient is coughing, na wheezing, so might as well go directly with your macrolide. So that would be the thinking, go with the macrolide so that you will cover everything. Okay. But, suffice it that you still start with the basic antibiotic because, mind you, macrolides are expensive medications. Okay. So when a specific pathogen is identified, modifying the empiric treatment based on antibiotic susceptibility pattern and our drug of choice is recommended. So this is used, let's just say you use a broad spectrum antibiotic because you have a severe pneumonia or a high-risk pneumonia. Okay, so let's just say you start your patient off like meropenem because your patient has signs of shock. Okay, and then you also give like your vancomycin because naman shock plus naka-suspicious na kanang pneumococcal. But when you do your culture, okay, maybe the patient got intubated, you got a tracheal aspirate for culture and sensitivity, and it would turn out to be, let's just say, HIV, and then all susceptible to ampicillin. So actually, you can actually downgrade your antibiotic to ampicillin. But your patient should be stable. So mean to say, you cannot downgrade your antibiotic if your patient also is not stable. So takiplik gihapon ang patient, nagyapoy signs of shock. Okay, so might as well, if you're for your decision making, do not decrease or do not downgrade your antibiotic. But if you use a broad spectrum antibiotic, stabilize your patient, and then when you got the culture, it will turn out to be like it's just sensitive to ampicillin, and then you don't have a chronic antibiotic use, so go ahead and downgrade your antibiotic to ampicillin. Okay? So when treating for uncomplicated bacteria, 7 to 10 days treatment is considered, but longer duration may be required depending on the patient's clinical response, the virulence of the causative agent, and eventual development of complications. Okay? So you can give it as long as 21 days. Okay. So, what if you have viral etiology? Okay, oseltamivir is strongly recommended to be started immediately within 36 hours of laboratory-confirmed influenza infection. Okay? So this is the time that you have to diagnose influenza A or B, you have to get your swab. Okay? The swab right now is readily available. It would just cost you mga 1,000 something. Okay? Because flu, you don't need to give antibiotic. You just need to give your oseltamivir. But within 36 hours of laboratory confirmed influenza infection. If it's more than 36 hours, so studies would tell you that it's just not as effective. Okay, so not 36 hours period. But mind you, the laboratories now for a swab, after 2 hours, the result would come out. So there's really no reason why you cannot start your oseltamivir. Okay. Okay. So non-severe illness suspected with viral pneumonia treatment is indicated in high-risk children with those less than 5 years of age, especially those under 2 and those with comorbidities like your asthma, with tuberculosis, and then children with high-risk contact to reduce amount of viral shedding and decreasing risk of transmission to high-risk contacts. Okay, so you can still give your oseltamivir. There's no syrup form for oseltamivir. So what we usually do is we do have them paper tab. Okay, so that we can actually compute for the dosage of the oseltamivir. Okay, so laboratory confirmed influenza should be treated with oseltamivir. Timing of treatment within 48 hours of symptoms. Okay, so initiating treatment beyond 48 hours of symptoms onset may still provide clinical benefit in hospital children or those with serious complications or deteriorating disease. Okay, so you give your oseltamivir twice a day for 5 days with the following dosage. So if you have a child younger than 1 year of age, so that's 3 milligrams per kilo per dose. So 1 year and older, it would vary by weight. Okay, so 15 milligrams or less, that's 30 milligrams. More than 15 to 23 kilos, that's 45 milligrams. 23 to 40 kilos, that's 60 milligrams. And then more than 40, that's 75 milligrams. Okay, so that's a preparation of your oseltamivir, that's 75 milligrams na, I think 75 milligrams per tab. So you just have to compute what would be the, what would be what you call that, the recommended dose for your patient. Okay, so what are the clinical and ancillary parameters will determine a good response to current therapeutic management? Okay, so when your patient, non-severe pickup with good clinical response to therapeutic management is considered when clinical stability is sustained for the immediate past 24 hours as evidence of improvement of cough, normalization of core body temperature, okay, and absence of antipyretic within 24 to 72 hours after the initiation of treatment. So mawala na yung ubo, no? And then, not really mawala, but decrease in frequency, okay, no more fever, and then no antipyretic for 24 to 72 hours. So it means to say that ni-respond imong patient with your treatment. Okay? So maybe, okay. So in severe pickup, a good clinical response, no? So any one of the following should be observed within 24 to 72 hours. So if you have desaturation, so there would be absence or resolution of your hypoxia, no? And then what are the danger signs? Like resolution like your grunting, alert flaring, respiratory distress, resolution of your tachypnea, no more fever, your patient is not tachycardic, and then on repeat chest radiograph, no, so resolution of the infiltrates, okay? So basically, everything that is increased would decrease or normalize. So that means to say your patient is responding to the treatment. Okay. So what can be done if the patient is not responding to the current therapeutic management? Okay, for non-severe pickup and are not improving clinically within 24 to 72 hours, so what you can do is determine if any of the following is present. So any coexisting or other etiologic agent, so maybe like treat as a typical pneumonia, okay? Maybe your etiologic agent is resistant to the antibiotics. So maybe if you're using amoxicillin, you can step up your medication. Or other diagnosis. So maybe you would have diffusion, no, you would have complications like necrotizing pneumonia or lung abscess, or maybe it's TB or it's asthma. Okay, that's why your patient is not responding. So you would have to re-evaluate your patient. Okay. So okay, so how do you do this one? So as I've mentioned earlier, so if you are giving amoxicillin, no, maybe you can shift to amoxicillin clavulanate or cefioxime, no, acephalosporin. Or